Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are checking out another of these brand new Soundstrike figures from Mattel, and this is the only one that is included in the new Soundstrikes that actually comes with Primal Attack Camp Cretaceous packaging, which is quite interesting to see those two sort of mixed together here, as the others were just Primal Attack, but this time we actually have a Camp Cretaceous look for the box art and everything. Of course, you can see it's this absolutely beautiful Parasaurolophus, aside from some of the kind of metallic coloration, which I think takes away from the figure. But the box art looks pretty much the same as all the other Camp Cretaceous box art seems to have looked so far. Here on the back of the packaging, you can see a few little images of the Parasaurolophus and some of its action features, as well as an image down here of the Irritator and Majungasaurus, which we have reviewed here already on the channel. And then over here, we actually have another one of those really cool little booklets that are included, but we've already looked at that in the past, so we don't really need to check that out. But it is fun that they include this, although I personally would much rather they go back to the trading card type thing that they had going on before. I thought that was a lot better than what we are currently dealing with here with these kind of booklets. But regardless, this is another really cool Soundstrike figure here at first glance, so let's go ahead and get it out of the box and take a look at it. So here is our Parasaurolophus, looking really beautiful, and I actually quite like the sculpt a lot on this figure, and although it's very close to the previous sculpt from the older Parasaurolophus, it definitely has some differences which I don't think a lot of people seem to be noticing at first glance, especially because the figure as a whole, as far as like the positioning of the body, looks very similar in comparison to the previous one, but there are definitely some differences within the sculpt a little bit in certain areas. But the Parasaurolophus definitely looks really nice here. Again, aside from, I kind of like that metallic pinkish color a little bit here in person, but at the same time, not that much. Definitely would have preferred that they didn't include a metallic look to it, but at the same time, again, it kind of looks okay. It's sort of confusing because I really love Parasaurolophus, and I really want to love this figure, and I do really like it, but I don't know if I love the paint scheme because of that pinkish coloration, but overall it does still look quite cool. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see that the head sculpt is quite nicely detailed, beautifully sculpted as far as the minute detailing of our Parasaurolophus goes. You can see inside the mouth there is some quite nice detailing going on. There is actually the teeth and everything of our Parasaurolophus sculpted out in there, but unfortunately you can't really see any type of paint application to the inside of the mouth, which is a little bit of a downside, but at least they do have it sculpted out quite nicely. I think I can actually make out the tongue in there as well. The beak of our Parasaurolophus is a nice brownish coloration. You can see the nicely sculpted nostrils. As we move back into the crest, you can see it transitions to like that metallic pink type of a coloration, which again, I'm not totally sold on, but it also then transitions back to that brown like we had just seen. The head of the Parasaurolophus primarily is just like this yellowish coloration, but you do have some kind of like brown speckling here and there. The eye kind of looks like it's a little sloppy. This side looks nice as far as the eye goes, and the eye is a blackish coloration. And then I guess for the pupils, sort of, it's supposed to have like the yellow behind the eye, pretty much the same coloration as the head, which I think definitely doesn't look all that good. It actually almost looks like the eye is supposed to be black, and then that yellow is sort of insinuating like eye shine, but they usually apply a gloss coat to the eyes anyway, so it normally looks realistic as far as eye shine regardless. But I would have preferred a different color eye and then a black pupil as opposed to this, but it doesn't look terrible, just could have been better. But again, you can see this eye specifically is quite a bit sloppy as far as the placement goes. Now, once we move down into the neck, I think the head sculpt is the same on this one as opposed to the previous Parasaurolophus. Once we move into the neck is definitely sculpted out a little bit differently on this one compared to the previous one. You can see kind of like some nice skin wrinkles here in the neck region of our dinosaur, as well as some beautiful skin texture up here. But the previous one I don't think really had these kind of skin wrinkles, and actually to show you that, I'm going to bring the other one in right now. So here are the two Parasaurolophus together, and you can now see that there is quite a bit of difference between the neck of both of them, honestly. This one, the neck is shaped actually quite differently than the newer one. The newer one seems to have a little bit of a thinner neck and a little bit of a longer neck, as opposed to the previous one, which had a little bit of a fatter neck, it looks like. And also the skin folds, kind of skin wrinkling going on right here, are present on the newer one as opposed to the older one that did not have that. So there is definitely some difference between the two in that department. Once we move back into the body, you can continue to see some really beautiful skin texture throughout the entire dinosaur, pretty much the entire bone structure shining through, like the shoulder blade protruding from the skin, as well as kind of the spinal column of the dinosaur up here. As we move down into the arms, you do have some very nice muscle tone, beautiful skin texture as well, and I definitely believe the arms and legs actually are probably the same on this figure as the older one, because they do look pretty much the same as far as I'm concerned. The same shape, same formation on both the arms and legs, although the older one did have painted nails on the feet, the newer one does not. But the leg sculpts and the arm sculpts remain the same as far as that goes. Now the actual body, I'm not entirely sure if it is exactly the same or not, because to me it does look a little bit different, because if you look at the older one, there isn't quite as dramatic of a hump up here on the back. This one you can see a pretty dramatic like hump right here on the back of the Parasaurolophus, but the older one doesn't really have it, that it's like quite so dramatic, it seems. And the skin texture looks very, very similar, but at the same time I feel like it is a little bit different. So I have definitely just discovered the difference. There is definitely a little bit of difference. If we look right here, the skin folding kind of going on right here does look a little bit different than the skin folding over here. It is shaped differently, so that means I think that the entire body actually is a different sculpt than the previous one as far as the actual main body. Even the underside does look quite different as far as that goes. And actually looking at it right here, it looks like the newer one is thicker as far as the body goes than the older one. Just the kind of stomach region appears to be thicker on the newer one as opposed to the older one. And let's take a look at the top of the dinosaur. So very, very similar as far as the upper side goes, minus that kind of hump-like appearance. But I'm not totally sure if it's exactly the same as far as the sculpt goes up here. It does appear to be a little bit different, I would say, than the newer one compared to the older one. Again, the legs are completely the same as far as the sculpt goes, but as far as paint goes, moving down the leg, you can see there's like a pinkish, like a metallic pink like we had stated before, but we also have like this very nice coloration. It's like nice dark brown, that kind of stripes and spots down the leg, and we also see that up here on the neck. You can see that start right there and then run down along the entire body until we get to the tail, of course. But you can also see that metallic pink up here on the upper side of the back of the Parasaurolophus. And actually looking at it here, it does actually look pretty nice. I am becoming more and more a fan, I think, of the paint scheme. The longer I'm looking at it here, it definitely is not near as bad as I once thought it was from some of the images I had seen prior to seeing it in person, which does tend to happen quite often as far as I'm concerned. We also have some paint here on the underside, just a little bit of a creamy coloration in the stomach region going back into the pelvic region. There is the Jurassic Facts app, actually, if you would like to add this to your collection. And then moving back into the tail, and again, the tail is definitely different than the older one. I can definitely say that straight away because it's thicker. I can feel already that this tail is thicker than the older version. So now, once you hold the two together, you can definitely see that there is a significant difference as far as the thickness and actually the length as well. The older one has a longer tail, it seems like, not by too much, but it definitely feels like the tail is a bit longer on the older one in comparison to the newer one, which has a shorter tail. But just generally, you can see here, the bodies appear to be a little bit thicker than the newer one. Like right here specifically, you can see is thinner on the older one than the newer one. Definitely has a thicker appearance there, and again, the tail is much thicker as far as the overall size right here in this department. But as we move out the length of the tail does also look really nice. Beautiful sculpt work. You can see the seam right here in this area where the rest of the tail kind of connects to the body. Very beautiful looking Parasaurolophus overall, and I actually think I like this kind of thicker look to the body. It just feels more like a little bit more of an immense sized animal as opposed to the previous version. So very nice looking as far as the sculpt goes. Again, beautiful looking for sure, very reminiscent of a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World style Parasaurolophus. The paint job, I'm not 100% sold on, but I definitely don't dislike it near as much as I once did. A very nice looking Parasaurolophus. So let's go ahead and get a size and check out the sounds, because I am quite intrigued to hear those. As far as a size goes, for a length on our Parasaurolophus, you were looking at about a foot long or about 30.5 centimeters. And for a height, about 4¾ inches or around 12 centimeters to the top of the crest. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our new Parasaurolophus, the new Soundstrike version. And pretty much going along with all of these Soundstrikes so far, it's right around that same similar size range. Maybe actually a little bit bigger as far as the overall body mass than the previous two, the Irritator and Majungasaurus, but definitely a really beautifully sized figure once again from Mattel. Now looking at the two Parasaurolophus from up above, we can really tell that there is some difference in the overall body size. Again, the width, I think I would say, of the figure. Even in the neck, you can definitely see the newer one has a little bit of a thicker neck. Up here, the tail of the older one doesn't quite look as long, so maybe it was just the positioning of me holding it, but it definitely appears to be a little bit longer than the newer one. It's kind of tough to tell, but overall, I am certain that there are quite a bit of significant difference between the two, although they still look really similar. As far as an action feature goes, we do the same deal as far as all the sound strikes. We're going to operate the tail, and we're going to then hear the noises. So here we go. Now that was a really beautiful noise. A lot of those I wasn't a big fan of, but that one was nice. Some of them sound more like carnivore noises than herbivore noises, but at the same time it doesn't sound terrible, and we did have that one really nice noise in there. We also have, as far as articulation goes, if he would stop talking for a minute, we have the head, which can move up and down and also kind of swivel around. If this thing could be quiet for a minute. We also have arm articulation, out away from the body and forward and back. We did see the neck articulation, also the leg articulation, and then we did also see the tail articulation for the action feature. But that's pretty much all of the articulation we get. Again, in my opinion, it's a really nicely articulated Parasaurolophus. So this Mattel Jurassic World Soundstrike Camp Cretaceous Parasaurolophus is a really nice looking figure. The paint job on this one, I think I would say don't like quite as much as the older one. I feel like the older one didn't have that metallic look to it, causing it to look better, in my opinion. But this one, having the metallic paint, even with it on, does still look decent, because I feel like the tones aren't as bright or as obnoxious as I had been led to believe from some of the promotional images and everything. In person, it definitely looks a lot better as far as that goes than the images that I had seen initially of the figure. So I can say straight away that the metallic paint, although definitely not my first choice, does look better in person than I expected it to. I also do like the brown coloration that is on the Parasaurolophus in certain areas, that darker brown, as well as that really nice brown that they've used for the upper part of the beak, not the lower part, and then up onto the crest. It all does look really nice and really natural. The only thing that doesn't look that natural would be that metallic pink paint, but again, it doesn't look terrible either, so I guess it's something we can all live with. As far as the sculpt goes, I think the sculpt is beautiful as per usual when it comes to a Mattel figure. Very highly detailed in every possible way. You have just tons and tons of sculpt work that continue to put the Jurassic World Hasbro figures to shame on each and every Mattel figure that we get. One downside, though, to the figure I think I could say is the fact that on this one we don't have nail paint. So that is definitely a downside, because on the older one we did at least have paint on the nails of the feet, not so much on the hands or anything, but at least on the feet we did have, on the rear legs I should say, we did have nail paint. On this one we don't, but that doesn't really take away from the sculpt. That's just kind of something I noticed right now as I was talking about it and wanted to mention. But as far as the actual sculpt goes, I don't really feel like there's any downsides. It's a beautiful figure. Again, as far as accuracy goes, not your most accurate Parasaurolophus. The tail is definitely a little bit too short, I would say, but at the same time, it's still really beautiful looking, very appealing looking, and loaded with really nice articulation. Always creates a fun figure from Mattel, because they always do give you a good amount of articulation in pretty much every figure. And then you have the addition of the action feature, which is okay. It's nothing amazing. Being a Parasaurolophus, it's, pretty much all you're really going to get. It's decent. But the sounds are 50-50, because we do have that one really nice herbivore-like sound, but some of the other sounds sound more like carnivores to me. So again, 50-50 in that department as well. But as a whole, I definitely do quite like it, and it is a really beautiful looking Parasaurolophus. So if you would like to pick this up, I can only tell you pretty much to either check Walmart.com because it does come into stock every once in a while, or head to your local Walmart because I've been seeing them everywhere recently, so it should be in stock very soon if it isn't already. Either way, I definitely recommend picking it up, so one way or another, do that because you will not regret it, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.